Hey everyone, Dr. Erin here. Welcome to episode 50 of the Sacred Illness podcast. I wanted to come on and record a special introduction to this episode before we get into the interview today, just because it feels like a big deal to get to 50 episodes. I started this podcast, maybe a year or two ago. I think it was 2023, actually, maybe the end of 2023 when I began this podcast. And I had a vision for sharing about sacred illness, about this idea that illness is an invitation rather than a curse or a block or something to be gotten rid of as fast and as quickly as possible. And so the paradigm shift that I'm really advocating for here on this podcast is that we need to change the way in which we think about illness. We focus all of our time and attention and energy on getting rid of the illness, which is understandable. But unfortunately, that means we're putting all of our time and energy and effort into getting rid of a messenger. We're getting rid of something that's trying to communicate with us a bigger and more profound message. Illness is this invitation to become who we really are. In my case, I don't think I ever was really myself. I was born into an environment where immediately I had to learn how to show up differently. I had to shift my persona. I had to be more of a people pleaser. I had to suppress a lot of my anger or less pleasant emotions. So I never really knew myself. And I remember a lot of my life having that feeling of a chronic sense of emptiness inside of myself that I tried to fill through external means, through relationships and moving and education. I was constantly seeking more external. And it wasn't until I started to stop, because illness stopped me and forced me to really reconsider what I was doing, that I started to figure out who I actually am and what actually fulfills me from an inside out way versus an outside in kind of way. That is ultimately what illness is inviting of us. That's what a healing journey is about. It's not about getting rid of illness in order to get back to the grind and the way that life used to be. Healing is about radically shifting how you've been showing up in your world so that it's really you who is living your life. It's really you who is present in your day-to-day life and not some construct of who you think you're supposed to be. But life doesn't require perfection from us. It doesn't require us to be perfectly nailing the authentic nail on the head in order for symptoms to start to alleviate. It just wants presence. It just wants us to be present to what's going on. It wants us to be tuned in and listening in a different way. And really, that's all illness is about. It's about trying to get you to tune in. It's about trying to get you to listen to yourself and to listen to your body. It's trying to get your attention. So if there's one thing I want you to take away from this entire podcast, it's that illness is here for you. It is an invitation into a life that you are supposed to be living versus the thing that is in the way of life. It's trying to get you to get out of the life that you're in so that you can get into the one that is truly meant for you. It's this radical mindset shift that the things that we deem as bad or wrong or failures, discomfort and pain and illness and suffering, we start to see them not as the worst thing that could ever happen to us, and instead start to see it as, albeit an uncomfortable one, it is an opportunity, it is an invitation, it is here to get your attention for a reason. And we would be wise to begin to pay attention. The diagnosis we receive is helpful. It can tell us why we've been feeling the way we've been feeling. It can explain the symptoms we have. It can explain the mechanism of the disease process that's happening in our body. But the thing I really want us to start moving away from is the prognosis. The prognosis is when the doctor tells you what's going to happen from the moment you're diagnosed and onward. That is the part that is up to us, truly, because we know, and as you have heard on this podcast many times, when we're given a prognosis and we believe it, it often becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But for the guests on this podcast and for myself who received a prognosis and somewhere inside of us there was that voice that said, this is not my story, we found a different outcome. And if we can do it, then so can you. The prognosis is an open-ended story, and there's no reason why it can't be a different story if you are willing to commit to it and do the work to figure out why your illness is here in the first place and who your illness is inviting you to become. So without further ado, I'm excited to delve into episode 50 today. Thank you again for listening to this podcast. Thank you for making it what it is. Thank you to all my amazing guests for coming on and sharing your stories with us. And I'm so excited for you to meet Matt today on episode 50. Let's get into it now. So the big question is this. We know spontaneous remissions and so-called miracle cures exist. We also know they aren't so spontaneous after all. I'm living proof of this, having cured my quote-unquote incurable illness. There's something to how this happens. So how do we, as humans with chronic symptoms, tap into this so-called miraculous healing capacity? That is the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Dr. Erin Hayford, and welcome to the Sacred Illness Podcast. Before we begin today's episode, just my standard medical disclaimer. This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. The content should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional regarding any medical concerns. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Sacred Illness Podcast. I'm so excited today. I have Matt Rowe with me, who I was introduced to through Lizzie Dunn. You can tune into Lizzie's episode, but she's been a wonderful matchmaker. Matt actually lives pretty close to me. We're here in the western side of the US together. Matt's hailing out of Denver, Colorado. Matt is a master neuroplastician. He's an author of a book called Belief to Heal. And now he's a dedicated guide in the field of mind-body transformation. His story is really incredible. In 2008, Matt overcame paralysis due to a spinal injury. He was in the process of completing Ironman, finally did get to complete Ironman after overcoming paralysis. So that was hurdle number one. Thought his story was done, thought everything was great. Then he started to have frequent strokes. That led him in 2017 to receiving the diagnosis of MS, or multiple sclerosis. Matt's going to share that whole journey with us, but he is now within his company called Optimal Body, Optimal Mind, teaching others how to harness the brain's power to heal and thrive based on his own journey. His company blends science and spirituality, which I'm excited to talk about on here. And he has, like so many of us, used his healing journey to now empower other people to rewire limiting beliefs, step into their highest potential. Matt's a meditation and Reiki practitioner. And really the goal is reconnection to inner peace and our natural healing capacity and energy. His mission is to inspire hope, resilience, and the belief that healing is not only possible, but that it's a daily choice and practice. It's something that we choose. I'm so excited to delve in. Welcome, Matt. It's so lovely to have you. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Dr. Erin, for having me on your show. It is such a pivotal point in my life to be interviewed by individuals like yourself. Thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So let's go back to 2008. At that time, I was under a lot of stress. I had just won the designation of being an All-American triathlete at the half Ironman distance. And I was starting to think about becoming a professional triathlete and going that road. Now, at this time, of course, I have a family, 2 young kids, and I'm walking this journey. My ego is strong. So I got my answer on whether or not I should continue when I broke my spine, L5, S1 area of the spine, right down by your tailbone. I dislocated mine, which paralyzed my right leg from the waist down. So that was a difficult moment. I couldn't run anymore. Had a difficult time walking across the street. I was definitely always just kind of with a hitch in my step everywhere I went. But you know what? I didn't want to come to terms with that. That's a big realization when you feel your entire identity has been lost. I went through a healing period. I went and saw a doctor, a neurologist that did a spinal surgery on me. Instead of fusing discs together, he actually went in and cleaned up the nerve fibers that ran down my spine. And when he cleaned those up, he gave me a 50-50 shot. And I talked to him, I'm like, Dr. Mariuello, I have a 50-50 shot. This will work. He goes, 50-50 shot. I don't paralyze you from the waist down.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And I thought, if it's 1 or 2, let's go for it. So I did it. I walked out of the surgery center. And then it was after realizing that I was looking at a 3.5-year rehabilitation of my right leg because the nerves only grow 1 millimeter a day. Well, if I have a 32-inch inseam, the math is easy. I was looking at 3.5 years. Wow. So a year before I was fully rehabilitated, I signed up for Ironman. And then in 2011, I finished Ironman. And I thought I was done. I thought it was all over. And so what did I do? I went back into stress, worry, shame, guilt, all those things. And then in 2013, I was hit by the proverbial 2x4 once again. I started to experience 25 to 30 strokes a day. And that existed for 4 months. Through everything I've ever experienced in my life, that was the scariest one. It was when I'd have a stroke, and it was a TIA, temporary ischemic attack. And so when I'd have one, the right side of my body from head to toe would paralyze. For 10 seconds, I was still working. I still did all of the things, and I hid it from everybody. Unless you knew me personally, you'd never know that I was experiencing a stroke. And so I've learned through that journey, I learned that food was medicine. And I learned what might have been the root for why my strokes may have started. And so I started to take care of my body. I started to pay close attention to what foods I was putting in. I replaced my gut microbiome because I looked at it as the good bacteria inside your body outnumbers your cells 100 to 1. Now, if we have 50 trillion cells, that's a big number. But that was the start of the next diagnosis, which was multiple sclerosis. I was diagnosed with primary progressive multiple sclerosis in 2017, but it didn't make sense to me. I knew it wasn't going to be within me, even though the neurologists and the doctors are telling me at that time, they said, within 6 months, you are going to be in a wheelchair.
Wow.
And I said, that doesn't make sense. And something always drove me to something bigger. So then I started to do some deep spiritual work. From 2017 to 2022, and still today, and possibly for the rest of my life, I started to take a look at the stress and wondered if stress was the root cause of MS. So that journey led me here, and I found MS to be the greatest gift ever handed to me.
It's incredible. And that's the resounding message that I promote in my own work. It's why I call it sacred illness, because I do see it as a gift. And I know that is a hard word for people who have not yet gone on that journey or stepped into that mindset or understood what's on the other side of it. But that's the point
Agreed.
of this podcast, to bring people on who have gone through it and have gotten to the other side and can look back in retrospect and see the gift that it is and was. And it's profound to me, this story arc that I'm seeing in you, where you're saying there's ego and override and go, 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 and just keep going, keep achieving, stress, stress, stress. And what you said is perfect, which is you got your answer 2 times from something saying, stop, no, don't keep going down this path. And it's really interesting that both times it was some form of paralysis, whether from the spinal injury or from the strokes, something is literally stopping your body. And there's no stronger metaphor than that. And so I'm curious, if you think about MS being this gift, you named a lot of it, how it changed your life and the things you now do. How would you classify who you were versus who you became? What is that gift? What was that illness inviting you into that changed your trajectory? How things are different now because of that illness?
Absolutely. I would say before the diagnosis of MS, and even before the strokes and the paralyzed leg, I was more caught up in ego. I didn't love myself. And you could sit there being like, oh, yeah, I love myself. This is going great. But do you offer yourself unconditional love? That means anything that happens. Let's say I'm walking down the road and I trip and I fall. Do I offer myself unconditional love in that moment? And what you find out is that we beat each other up so much. I would say prior to this, I was at a surface level of ego. I loved myself. Where I'm like, yeah, I'm good at this, or I got this. And it was all ego driven. And so once the MS diagnosis came in, I started to walk a different spiritual road. And what I found was a deep, unconditional love of myself. At first, this was tough because my old self wanted to hold on desperately, like, don't let me go. We've got to make this happen. You got to keep going this way. And the ego wanted to basically run the show. In the past, I had the ego in the driver's seat of the car. And that ego was driving me to stress, worry, doubt, shame, guilt, frustration, all of those incongruent emotions that we do know actually vibrate within us energetically. So then I would say the biggest thing I learned was to become aware. I became aware of this moment. No judgment, no fears, no worries. And under that awareness, I accepted them. I accepted all those thoughts. Let's say there was a thought of worry that I couldn't run again, or I couldn't do what I did in the past, or I wouldn't be able to make the money I wanted. That's just worry. And there's nothing we can do with worry. So it was in that moment when I became aware of worry, I felt worry. But like not feeling it as worry, but feeling it deep within my body and becoming aware and realizing that this is not me. It's
Mm.
just a thought inside my mind. So then that allowed me to take one small step in a different direction, to put my focus of my thoughts into what I really wanted. So after the diagnosis of MS, I realized at this moment going, well, what do I want? Because there's so many times we don't actually tell ourselves what we want. And then at another level, going after it with putting myself first. So then I became, with this unconditional love, I came first on everything. Now I have two kids. I've got a beautiful fiance, like all of these things, but I had to put myself first. And so, with all of these things, as I'm walking this journey, it was very easy for me to dip back into the old way. That's easy because I knew it. But going this route towards self acceptance, love, appreciation, forgiveness, like all of those had to be learned. We're not taught this when we're growing up. The old way was like walking down a road. And I could walk that mile down that road in 10 minutes. Doing this new way is like walking through the woods with no trail. That could take you all day to walk that mile. So then it's being okay and being compassionate with myself that if I do fall in my thought process, to be okay with it
Mm.
and to release it. And
Incredible.
so, yes, our thoughts are important. Our thoughts become things. The Buddha said 2,500 years ago, your thoughts are everything. What you think, you become. And he was right. When I started to think differently about MS, when I started to think differently about myself, stress decreased. Even though I'm a business owner and it's a very stressful environment, taking a look at it and holding on to only the things that promote me. So let's say there's a moment where I am leading a group or doing something like that. And let's say I screw up my words. Let's say I'm having a tough day and it doesn't go well. Then it comes into that moment. I have a choice. Do I beat the living tar out of myself? Or do I step back into a space of possibility and just accept what happened and saying, all right, this won't happen. This is what I can do next time to keep that from happening. And you are okay. You are really good at what you do. And following that philosophy and that thread of saying, what is every thought that enters my mind? And this can be the difference of recovering from dis-ease or being crippled by dis-ease.
Yep. It's so fascinating to hear the way you're describing that difference from moving from being egotistical to being self-loving, because I feel like we confuse that, right? We think of being selfish or egotistical as being obsessed with yourself. And actually,
Yeah.
there's a healthy way that manifests. So egotistical is like you're saying, there's this image thing or this materialistic drive or keeping up with the Joneses. It feels surface when I talk
Yeah.
about it, but underneath it, oftentimes there's not a lot of love to back it up, right? It's looking for love, looking to prove something when we're driven from that other place. And then what you're talking about is this difference where it's letting go of that external thing where you're even allowing yourself to be imperfect, right? Because we are imperfect and we make
Yes.
mistakes and we trip and we fall. And so the difference is not so much about external perfection, internal hatred, it's external humanness. an
Mhm.
internal love that is just meeting yourself where you're at and loving yourself for who you are in that moment. And that
Absolutely.
allows you to heal and to feel safe in all of those things. Does that align with your experience of that transformation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But me, I get a little bit scientific in my mind, so I wanted to prove it. And so I started to study the Heart Math Institute, Dr. Bruce Lipton, Greg Braden, Eckhart Tolle, Wayne Dyer, when he was still here, Dr. Joe Dispenza. And there's so much science that says who we really are as human beings. So let's take a look at this from another level. We are made of atoms. Everything in your existence is made of atoms. So then it would lead you to the next question. What is the atom? Well, they find that the atom is 99.999999999% energy, leaving only 0.0001% matter. Now, through our eyes, we see matter. I see a computer in front of me. I see my wall. I see all of these things that matter. So then my brain goes, oh, that's the way it really is. But if we are made of atoms, we are energy. So where does energy come from? Well, it comes from every thought, feeling, and experience that you have. So what you were talking about earlier with being egotistical, you are looking at external things that really is only 0.0001%
Mm.
as the most important thing in that moment. But when we actually come into our own energy of love within us, that energy actually has a vibration. And this is what they discovered at the Heart Math Institute. You're looking at love. When love vibrates within the body, now that we're energy, we're vibrating,
Mm-hmm.
that vibrates at 650 gigahertz. And they can measure this. When you take a look at, let's just say, shame. If we shame ourselves because we're egotistical and we screwed up and we did something wrong or we didn't win or we had a setback, if we're in that space of egotistical, we'll allow shame to take over, and shame vibrates at 50 hertz.
Wow.
And what they've noticed is anything that vibrates over 300 hertz actually repairs the body. So if the nervous system is always being triggered because we're worried, we have fear, we have stress, we have doubts, what we're actually doing is affecting the body biologically. So that means the cells of our body are all dysregulated. That's why I don't ever, with all the work that I do, it's never disease, it's dis-ease. It's
Mm.
what Dr. Deepak Chopra talked about so beautifully. You just have a diseased, regulated nervous system within your body. So what do we do to bring that back in line would be to address the stress, to come back from within, to meditate, to put yourself first, to find love from within you. And it's impossible to go from shame to love. I've never seen anybody do it. I've helped thousands of people. Someday I may find somebody that can immediately, with one thought, go from shame to love. So, what I recommend is become aware that you're in shame right now. And if you're aware that you're in shame, that's okay. Then I'm going to invite you to take one small step of 1% towards love. And that shame may go to anger, and
Mm.
anger's okay. Anger vibrates at 150 hertz. So then, as I'm having thoughts, if my thoughts gravitate towards a state of love and acceptance, saying, all right, I notice this is coming in for me, then that's actually giving you the power back in your hands. Now, the stats show that if you have a thought of love for 17 seconds, and you stack 5 of those 17-second moments together, at that point, you are actually in the manifestation zone.
Mm.
That is when good things come to you. That is when you'll find a sense of lightness within your body. That's when you actually allow things to change in your reality, when we consciously become aware of every thought we have.
Wow.
And at the beginning, this is a pain in the butt, but
Right.
it gets easier. It becomes more automatic because you're now changing the cells within your body. Now, if those cells are just mass duplicating and they're coming from every thought, feeling, and experience that I have, and I'm constantly feeding, let's call it incongruent thoughts within my body, then that means those thoughts are mass duplicating. And what the science shows is 95% of our thoughts are ones we do not want.
That subconscious mind is the focus that I try to promote on here, that awareness of what is that subconscious programming from all these experiences we've had telling us how to think of the world and
Yes.
automatically respond to the world and think about who we are. Because what you're saying is we get to choose our narrative, we get to choose our story, we get to choose how we
Yes.
show up. And I think it's fascinating because you hear that phrase, raise your vibration, high vibes only, whatever, those things that people throw around. There's scientific proof to that. And in whatever science class it is where you learn about cells and the space between the quarks that make up the electrons and all those things, we learn about that, but then we just leave it there. It's like, okay, but what does that actually mean if it's mostly energy? And I love that HeartMath and all the folks you mentioned and so many brilliant minds actually started to look at that, because it's not just this quirky little fact, right? It's so much more important to look at that. And yet this really highlights the disparity in the medical approach, where we're focusing on that 0.0000001% matter. We're looking at the lab
Yes.
test and the physical thing and missing the 99.9999% energy part of it. And yet that is the vast
Right.
majority of what's happening at all times within our body. And it also speaks to that reality of why other people's bad moods influence you, like that feeling you get when you're around someone, like all those things that we know, intuition, those gut feelings, all of that is energy. That's that vibration, what you're picking up on and how it's influencing your cells and your body. And yet again,
Absolutely.
we don't look at it or we poo-poo it.
Yeah.
And when you say to start to become aware of your thoughts, yes, I can imagine how arduous and tedious that is. How does one even begin to do that if 95% of them are unconscious or automatic programming? How does one even start to crack into that?
That's a great question. So I'm going to come back and ask you a question, and all your audience members right now. Now think about this in this moment right now. You can spend the rest of your day in fear, or you can spend the rest of your day in love. Which one do you choose, Dr. Aaron?
I choose love.
You didn't even think about it. It was automatic. The pause probably came with, that's a dumb question. Why would you ask that at all? Of course, it's always going to be love. So at that moment, you became consciously aware. You actually tapped into the 5%. The 5% is actually stronger than the 95%. The 95% of our thoughts are just habit. It's the same thoughts that we've had since we were young kids growing up. Got to remember that subconscious mind is actually built between the ages of birth to 9 years old. It's crazy to think a lot of our thoughts don't come from the logical adult mind of love. It comes from the fearful mind of when we were kids. So the 95% is just the subconscious, that you're basically operating your life based upon which are your habits. So let's say a thought comes up. You're walking through the grocery store and somebody says something terrible to you. In that moment, you're going to have a thought that arises. Catch that thought in that first thought process. The person just said something terrible. They're probably having a terrible day. It's not you. And that perception just came over into your own thought process. So then you can go back and say, do I believe that? Do I know that's true? Then naturally you step over into the land of 5%. Just by becoming aware. Just like in that moment in the question I asked you, fear or love? Well, you're aware, I don't want fear. I want love. So you would naturally choose love. And so all medications and all things that you do, whether you are working out in a program, whether you're going to see Dr. Aaron, whether you're taking vitamins, minerals, supplements, eating a right diet, all of those things, your mind is going to direct your body on whether or not that's going to work.
Yes.
So case in point, read the book Cured by Dr. Jeffrey Redinger. There's been so much documentation in regards to this. Ask yourself, do I believe in this? Let's say you're doing an exercise program. Do I believe in this program that I'm doing? If the answer is yes, then keep doing it,
Mhm.
but do it with focus and intention. Like, don't just go through the motions. Come at it with that belief and that focus. Now, at some point, if you don't believe it and you're like, man, it's not going to work, this is a pain in the butt, stop doing it. Find something that works for you. I've seen people heal themselves with yoga. I've seen people heal themselves with meditation. I've seen people heal themselves with Reiki. I've seen people heal themselves with exercise programs. They're all great, but ask yourself, what do I believe?
Yes.
And what you may notice is you go back to when you were younger, and it might be an old story like your grandmother had said to you, or something else that is a story that plays out in your mind. You're using the subconscious mind to your advantage, and that's when healing happens. Is when we begin to rewrite the cells within your body at a neurological level to actually start to enter back into that space of health. Health is your natural space of being. We are all naturally supposed to be healed and healthy. So now, if you want to go to the spiritual side, so I believe it happens on three levels. So the first level is our soul. That is perfection. That is everything that you are. Your soul knows no disease. It knows no struggles. It knows no worries. And it only loves you unconditionally. That's the soul. Then the soul has to filter through our minds. So think about every thought you've had. So now, for example, if you're making something through a filter and the filter is really dirty, that filter is not going to drain out very well. So now, if our minds are dirty and not in a space of self-compassion and happiness and joy and love and forgiveness, then when that message from the soul comes down through our minds has the ego aspect to it, and our minds will say, you know what? You're not very good at that. I can't believe you did that the other day. This is really stupid. Why did you do that? You shouldn't have cut your hair like that. Oh my gosh, if you had this would be so much better. It's just the filter of your mind, but then the mind transfers to the body. So then all of a sudden, the body is now receiving that message into every cell of your body, and now it's energy. There's an infinite number of possibilities within your life. Let's talk about being healed. Let's say at one moment you're in a wheelchair. If your thoughts are always like, oh, I'm in this wheelchair, this is going to suck, this is going to be terrible, then those thoughts are being reinforced over and over again because you're looking at your physical reality with only the 0.0001%, and you're saying this is the way it is. And then what happens is now we brought that into the energy aspect of this, and that comes to be within our lives.
Mm.
If you could shift one small step and say, do I think I can get out of this chair? The nerves that fire together wire together. If I'm firing those nerves of possibility off in my brain, that means they're going to connect and find others to connect to that support that same thought process. In that moment, what we're actually doing is pruning the old thoughts away. We're no longer reinforcing those old thoughts of being in a wheelchair. Then you might have a workout program come to you. You might meet somebody. You might meet somebody that encourages you. Now we're playing into the quantum. Like energy attracts like energy. So then let's say you find a sense of love for yourself. And we don't need to go far, just a little bit. Let's say we start to think, I am really happy with my life right now. I really enjoy what I do. Now you are energy vibrating out into the universe, which will then reflect back this energy to you. So states of love attract states of love. Now, early on, I didn't understand this completely. I was in the beginning parts of my studies. I started to feel love within my heart. Then I had to go grocery shopping. And I had somebody in a grocery store I have no idea who this woman was. She was an older woman in her 80s. And she stopped and looked at me and smiled. Just a beautiful smile. And she stopped and said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm just Matt, grocery shopping right now." She goes, "No, I feel a love coming off of you." She
Wow.
said, "Thank you very much for being that."
Oh.
And she left. And I noticed different things happen to me. Like different people are like, "Oh, we got like 4 items, just go ahead of me." Or other serendipitous events started to happen because I chosen love. Now it happened on the other side too. When
Hmm.
I stepped back into my own fears and worries, I attracted more fears and worries into my life.
Yep.
So when we look at healing the body, healing the body is a conscious act and it has to be consistent. We've got to start being that something different within us.
Hi, Sacred Illness listeners. Dr. Erin here. If you are resonating with the stories and the things that you're hearing inside this podcast, and you're curious how to begin this work yourself, how to start connecting with your illness in this different way, to start seeing it through a different lens, to start being in relationship with it versus seeing it as an adversary or something that you have to fight against, I would love to invite you to join us inside the Sacred Illness community. This is an online space I've created exactly for that. It takes you step by step through a process to decipher the message of your body, to understand what your symptoms are trying to communicate with you, the subconscious patterns and the belief systems that have been imprinted and programmed into your nervous system that are now creating the conditions in your body that are not conducive for healing, and in fact are likely creating the illness and the symptoms that you are experiencing now. Within this community, you will learn all the things you need to do to begin to rewrite those stories, to rewrite those nervous system patterns, to understand on a deeper level what it is that's driving your body to create illness and to move in this direction of dis-ease, and how to reverse this process and begin to work with yourself in this more holistic, loving way versus fighting against a body that you're perceiving perhaps to be failing, when really illness is this beautifully wise communication trying to get you to tune in and listen in this new way. Everything contained within the community is self-paced, it is affordable, it is easily accessible from anywhere. It can be on your laptop or on your phone, and it allows you to add this element that's foundational to your health and healing process in addition to anything else that you're doing. This work is complementary to whether you're taking pharmaceuticals or just pursuing more holistic type treatments. Whatever you are doing, this nervous system, mind-body piece is foundational and needs to be part of your treatment plan. So if it's not, the Sacred Illness community is a really easy and really important way to get this part of the work into your routine. If you want to learn more, you can click the link down below in the show notes that will lead you to a full description of everything that's included in the community. Or if you're ready to just sign up today, you can go to mysacredillness.com, follow the prompts, and you'll find your way into our space. It is my mission and my goal for everyone who's listening to this podcast to feel a sense of hope that you're not broken, your body is not failing. It is a beautiful, intelligent communication that is taking place, and the Sacred Illness community is the space and the place where you can begin to decipher that message and find your way back to the health and the healing that you deserve and desire. So I hope to see you in there, and for now, let's get back to the podcast. I always think of what you were saying about how the majority of the subconscious is programmed in those early years in life. Think about who you were from 0 to 9. Like, good grief.
Yeah.
So much of our life
Good
and
grief.
reality is based on that. It's based on things that were out of our control, the family we were born into, the world we were born into, the community. And yet, so much of who we become is based on things that were out of our control and not our choice. And I pose that to my clients, that who you are and how you think of yourself is based on what these people who loved you but didn't put the best things into you, or didn't have the best things surrounding you, or maybe it was overtly abusive. Regardless, you are basing your current reality off a 7-year-old child's opinion of the world. Is that really what you want? Yeah. And obviously not insulting children, because we have an immature worldview at that point. It's not the worldview you want to be basing your reality off of for your entire life. When I started doing Joe Dispenza stuff and his meditations, it was initially incredible. And I felt the potential. Like you were saying, there's infinite possibilities for what life looks like. And then pretty quick, that fear hits you, as you were mentioning, that desire of like, I just want to go back. I want to go back to what's familiar. And it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard initially before you start to see things starting to shift and you start to see where this path is leading you. It's hard to stay rooted in that trust of this is going to bring good things in. It's going to pull the goodness into my life. I'm curious if there was initial hurdles or fear or setbacks or resistance. What did that look like for you? Because I think that's a stumbling block for a lot of folks. It's like, oh my gosh, this is so inspirational. But then the reality of it is that it can be really scary and challenging. And so for you, how did you move through that part of the work?
I'm laughing inside because I want to get a t-shirt made that says, well, that didn't work.
Yeah.
Because there was so many moments of really like doubts and fears and worries. They were always there, and sometimes there still are. But it comes back to that moment of that first step. What do I want right now? And are my thoughts leading me to what I want? But a lot of individuals will say things like, oh, I want this. So let's say an individual is having a hard time walking. So I'd ask them the question, what do you want? And they would say, I want to walk again with balance and ease. Well, that's the mountaintop. Now, I've climbed 14ers. I've never climbed any of them in one step. So, what you actually are doing by saying what you want, I want to walk with balance and ease. That's the mountaintop. That is a very powerful intention that you're setting, not an expectation, but an intention.
Mm.
That's where I want to go. Because in this journey, it's never linear, even though this is what we're told when we grew up. Think of your entire life. You started at preschool, kindergarten, grade school, junior high, high school, college, get married, have a family. I'm
Yeah.
just talking about linear progression. But the way that really happens was a squiggly line all over the page. Some moments go down, some moments go up, and eventually you might end up here. But it's okay if you don't, because you look at it in some level saying, all right, I am learning. So think of all of the moments that come into your life. Those are teachers.
Mm.
Everything is teaching you something. For example, let's say you're making a bowl of oatmeal. You just get it out of the microwave and it's super hot. You take a bite and you burn your tongue. But you just learned to let that cool down before you go and eat that. Well, the teacher came. Maybe a moment comes in where somebody comes into your life and they're not being nice to you. Well, that essentially is the teacher. Let's say a thought comes into your mind and you're like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm so frustrated. That's just the teacher.
Mm.
And so if the teacher came in that moment, then I'm learning, oh man, I went to do this and I had this thought come in my mind. That's not what I want. That's not going to lead me to walking with balance and ease. So then you would be consciously aware and you take the next step. And that conscious awareness is an act of love. Another thing I'm going to say on this is that everything you set out there, this is what I want. What I want to invite you to do is remove all need from it. So think of this, anything you need, you will never get.
Mm.
Because what energy are you putting out with need? I don't have it.
Right.
So the quantum has to return whatever energy you are putting out.
Mm.
And we anthropomorphize this. We want to put human aspects to the universe. The universe didn't give me this because I haven't been very good or I haven't done this. No, the universe is too vast to ever care. So the universe has to reflect back to you exactly who you are being energetically. Then I noticed this with all the teachers that come into my life, it basically is a point to what I am being from within inside. So the universe is a mirror and it's
Mm.
just reflecting back everything. For example, if I wake up in the morning and I go to the mirror and I look in my eyes and I don't see what I want to see, do I bang the mirror and tell it to change? No,
That's
that'd be crazy.
that's a great way to say that.
So then if the mirror's just reflecting back who I am being by the teacher, somebody showing up in my life, then it makes me aware of saying, oh, I have not been very nice to myself lately. So I'm going to start taking small steps of just accepting myself for who I am right now. I may not be happy about it, but I'm going to accept myself. So we're always given moments within our lives to come back to our center, to our soul, to that purpose that is deep within us.
Yes. That's a powerful reframe. And it's part of the reframe I use with illness, as we sort of alluded to at the beginning, as a teacher. And that's such a paradigm shift for us because we think of teachers as positive influences pulling us in a certain direction. We think of challenges, illness, and negative thoughts as obstacles getting in the way of where we're supposed to be going, when really it's the path itself. The challenge is the path itself. Yes. It's saying that once you work with this thing, you get closer to that summit, like you're saying. And it's fascinating to me how people who tune into this work and get on the path, heal their bodies, we all seem to arrive at the same conclusions. We are having this conversation for the first time, really understanding your journey and getting to know each other. And yet our journeys and our work is so similar. And the work I do with my clients is I have them do exactly that. I say, what is your vision? I have them write a vision statement and say, no barriers. What is your ideal, perfect, beautiful life? Let go of any limiting belief, anything that you're saying, I can't have it. Let it all go and write down, what is that thing? And then I have them meditate on that vision. And then eventually what comes knocking is the limiting beliefs and the challenges. The teachers start showing up.
Right.
That's the journey. And then we start working on that. Because if we didn't have any of those thoughts vibrating in us and creating that mirror, we would be reflected back exactly how we want to be and the life we ideally want to have. We would have it. The reason we don't have it is what we're exploring through these challenges in our lives. And that's such a empowering reframe, because then it doesn't create this vicious cycle of, oh God, I can't stop having negative thoughts. I'm never going to heal. It becomes this weirdly positive thing of like, oh, I got one. There it is. This is the next thing I get to work on. Yay, I found the next layer, right? It takes that initial, like we're talking about, learning how to tune in, learn how to catch those thoughts, learn how to be present to yourself, learn how to get through that initial fear and resistance. And then once you get going, there's a momentum that starts to build. And like I'm saying, you start to feel excited of like, I found the next layer. Okay, this is the next thing. I'm one step closer now. And it's so exciting once you fully step into that new mindset and see how it does start to shift.
Absolutely. You have a completely different perspective on your life. Bad things happening are not bad things. They're just things. A bad thought, or what I call an incongruent thought, is just an incongruent thought. That's all it is. Now, you as the human being, we get to change. We get to look at that thought and say, oh, that's not what I want. That's not where I'm going. So then we get to consciously make a different choice. And so, granted, yeah, those old thoughts, they will be there. I love how you framed it. You're looking at it as like when the next one comes, you're like, ooh, I get to work on that one now. I get to forgive myself for that, or make a phone call, or write in your journal a letter of forgiveness towards yourself. And, journaling exercise I absolutely love doing with my clients is I have them imagine their self 5 years from now knocks on their door. What does she say? What story is she telling? Is she talking about the great trip that she just got home from? Is she talking about a different possibility, a new love, or the story of her body healing, of her running again, of her life coming back? Then think about it as she tells you that story. What's her energy? Is she happy? Is she accepting? Is she loving? Is she excited? Is she joyful? Now, if you think about that, I've never had anybody write their future self story from 5 years from now, and the person describes how terrible their life is.
Right.
That doesn't make sense. That question I asked you at the beginning, love or fear, you essentially would not ever lead to that way. You'd only sit in a state of possibility. So then it gives you that opportunity to go, I want that. Okay, great. Then it's our opportunity to be that. So we can look at this out as an equation. Be, do, have. Most of us in Western society say, when I have this, I'll be happy.
Yep.
Well, that's backwards. Because that thing that you have isn't going to make you happy. But to get the thing that you desire, we first need to be it. So allow happiness to form into a habit and allow that habit to create that thing you desire. Some spiritual teachers have talked about this as well. One of them being Bashar. He said, do what you enjoy to the best of your ability and expect nothing in return. What does that mean, though? Do what you enjoy. It seems little and it seems subtle, but sometimes the little and subtle is the most complicated things that we'll do.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I had a like exact example of what you're talking about with that quote, where for the last 3 years, I recently switched fully into doing mind body medicine. I had to rebuild my entire practice because I moved away from doing conventional doctor stuff and labs. A lot of people fell off because they were like, oh, I don't need mind body medicine. I was like, okay, well, I'll see you in 5 years when you change your mind. But
you'll be back.
Yeah. But so I started doing business classes, seeing all the business coaches and figuring out Instagram hacks and paying for ads and doing all the things. I was like, okay, I want to be successful. And so to be successful, I'm going to do all these things. And once I'm successful, I'll be happy, I'll have money, and then I'll be good. So I poured all this money and time for years and years and years and years. 3 years, and then got to this point of frustration because it was moving the needle by tiny minuscule amounts, but not the return on investment, literally and figuratively, that I was going for. And so very recently I came around to this place of, you know what, I'm just going to do this work because I love it and I'm obsessed with it. I am just going to put out whatever feels most alive in me in this moment and say what feels the most needing to be said in this moment. Let passion move me. And I'm going to put it out there and I'm going to just let it go. And I don't care what happens, because really all I care about is talking about what I love. And whatever happens from there, cool. But I'm not going to expect anything in return, because all I know is my mission and job in this world is to speak about what I'm speaking about. Literally, the first post I made from that mentality went viral, got like 9,000 new followers on my account. It's the craziest experience I've ever had. And now I have all these people applying to work with me, and I'm trying to stay grounded, because this is not what determines my happiness. My passion is what makes me happy. This work is what makes me happy. And it's that continuous having to regroup and reground into not expecting anything. I'm continuing to let go of expectation. But it was this profound moment in my timeline of, okay, I'm just going to live and love and be happy and be excited and be passionate and have no expectation, no riding on some future thing of like, once this happens, then, right? That whole mentality of just completely getting rid of that, because you live your whole life doing that. You live your whole life saying, once this happens, then this happens. You miss out on everything. You never become the person you want to be. You never get to just be alive. You're just constantly yearning and pining for something. And in the meantime, you're miserable. I was miserable. And it's a really challenging thing to let go. It can feel sometimes like giving up, but it's really this profound decision of, I'm going to be alive right now. I'm going to choose to be this person right now, and I'm going to release everything. And it's really such a relief to step into that mindset, because you can let go of all the pressure you're putting on yourself. You can let go of the fear of failure and the heartbreak and the hurt that comes with continually not getting what you want, because it was never going to be what I wanted. Even if I had gone viral, I never would have felt satisfied by that, because I was seeking something that didn't exist outside of me, essentially. I think that's the other thing. Even if you're technically getting the life you want, you can talk to millionaires and people who have the house and the car or whatever. They're not necessarily the happiest person in the world. There's something to be said about really recognizing that it's not about what you have, it's how you feel about yourself right now. Everything else is just relative to that.
When I was diagnosed in 2017, I started to think, where am I going? Is this what I want? Do I want to be in fear? I knew deep down that's not what I wanted. I wanted to walk. I wanted to find security within my life. And so I naturally started to move all of my thoughts towards that space. And I started to focus on this feeling of possibility. Now, it's not like I went a 180. Maybe I went from 0% to 1%. And I kept reinforcing that every day within my mind. That's when I became a meditation Reiki practitioner. I read some great books. The Surrender Experiment is a really, really good book. And it got me thinking differently about dis-ease. Now I teach mindset. I teach individuals how to come out of their fearful mind space and enter into their space of possibility. But Still, there are moments even within my own life. I tell my clients, and they're like, oh, you got to be the most positive guy. I'm like, no. We're all living in a sphere of possibilities. I'm holding my hands up and I'm making a circle. Inside of that circle is everything I have now, I believe now, and I'm creating now. That's within my own sphere of possibility within my mind. I know it's true. Anything outside of that sphere is something that I don't necessarily believe. So, with that, when we come to the edge of our sphere of possibility, we are going to explore that thing outside of our possibility. That is going to challenge your thoughts. Your old thoughts from the subconscious mind are going to come in, which is natural. That's 95%. And as we become aware of those and feel those fully and allow them to be released from within us, we realize that we are not that thought, that we are something new. So come to your edge of possibility and explore it, but explore that with compassion. Oftentimes I'll sit in meditation first thing in the morning after I exercise, and I'll sit in meditation and I'll have random thoughts come in my mind, and they're just all wanting to be released from within me. And those are the teachers that show up. And I say, okay, you need some attention right now. So then I'll give myself attention. It's interesting. After reading all of these books, there was a central theme that came out of all of these books. So whether you read The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer or anything by Eckhart Tolle, you read anything from Dr. Joe Dispenza, Carolyn Myss, Anatomy of the Spirit, Three Beliefs of Ego by Aaron Abke, what it really points to, all of them say the same thing: the present moment of now. The past is gone and the future is not yet here. The past, think about that as an emotional side, has shame, regret, guilt, doubts. It's just the past. And the past is done. There's nothing I can do about the past. And the future is anxiety, worry, doubts. So then the only time we can actually heal our bodies is right here, right now. If we all could learn that within our lives, is that everything happens right now. So 5 seconds ago was the past. So in this moment, the best place that I can be right now is with you, Dr. Aaron, in this space. Everything else doesn't matter. I let it go and I release it. Because if I hold on to it, did I say the right thing? What if anybody thinks that, oh my gosh, that guy's a moron and I can't believe this? And what about this? It's this incessant hamster wheel that goes on in my mind. But when I come into the present moment, I think about the air that I'm breathing. I think about how my skin feels in this moment. I feel the sunshine coming in through the window. I see all of these different things and I release them. So I love what the great Sufi master said. And so too this shall pass. Every thought you have in your mind will pass. Every good thought, every loving moment, every negative moment, every frustration, every worry, that's just temporary. It will pass. So allow the good to pass and allow the incongruent or negative to pass. It's just a moment. That's all it is. And you will come back to your center. You will come back to who you really are. But who are you allowing to drive the car? The ego or consciousness? Higher consciousness is just a state of being aware. And if we all could just be aware, with no shame, no guilt, just as the observer. Oh, I noticed this thought come up. Well, that's one I don't want. I'd like a different one. And it's in that moment when healing happens, when we actually stay there in the present moment of now. So allow yourself to just Feel the breath in your lungs, the temperature of the air around you, the birds chirping outside, the sun as it shines, the beauty of the trees as they're changing. That's the present moment of now. In the present moment, we actually allow our bodies to heal themselves.
That's beautiful. That's mic drop. That's it. Everything right there. Everything you need to heal exists right now as you're listening to this. Everything you need to heal to step into the life you want is here. It's now. It's not in the future. It's right here. We all know and hear, be in the moment, be present. But if we can just actually anchor into what does it actually mean? And what does it actually look like in practice? And can you actually do it? Can you actually embody that and be present? I mean, even when you said you're here with me right now, I felt my energy shift and come here and just land and let everything else go. It's that relief of just existing, giving yourself permission to be who you are. And whatever arises, then you can actually be with it and be with what's there and see the medicine, the challenges, the teachers that arise, versus constantly having your mind on that next thing or that last thing, because you're missing it, right? When your mind is elsewhere. It's both beautifully simple and also challenging, but we have to come back to this center of everything you need is inside of you right now. How do you access that? And do you believe in it? I think that's a key piece that you mentioned, is that belief. And if you don't believe in it, find what you do believe. If you don't believe you can heal, start there, because that's the belief that's going to kickstart everything. You have to lean into that belief that you can heal. That's the starting point, because then everything from there unfolds.
Absolutely. Let's put this in a garden analogy.
Yeah.
Your belief is the seed. So you're going to plant that seed in your garden. But the only way that I know any seed grows is you have to water it. Your watering it is your thoughts in your mind. Then what that belief will turn into is a plant. That plant is knowing. For example, Erin, are you going to breathe right now?
Yes.
How do you know that?
I don't have a choice. It happens naturally without thinking.
Okay, so that's how you heal. That level of knowing with no reasonable doubt that I'm going to breathe right now. It's like another dumb question. You're like, yeah, of course I am. Healing comes the same way, but allow your belief to be the seed. You water the seed with your thoughts. That plant that grows is your knowing. I love it. Dr. Joe Dispenza's retreats. He said, everybody that has ever healed at any one of my retreats no longer desired to be healed. They knew it. They had a knowing wash over them. Like that story you told about your business, which I absolutely love. You knew it. That is what I want. This is where I'm going. And you had the energy of that possibility growing within you. And you just said, I know I'm going to do this. So you were willing to let go of one to step into another. And then all of a sudden you went viral. Well, of course you did, because the knowing was within you. There was no doubt. So step into your healing down from every food that you eat, every thought you have, every supplement you take, all of it. Know that everyone you do, that is healing your body, but know it deeply from within. So that's the journey. Enter yourself into a space of knowing. Ask yourself a question. What do I know right now? I know I'm going to breathe. I know I have a house. I know this is showing up. The wind's going to blow. I know the sun's going to shine today. Think of every one of those levels of knowing. And then ask yourself, do I know that I can heal my body? And that's when the teacher will show up. And may have doubt, worries, and you'll justify it. You'll say, well, the doctor told me that this is never going to be. And I read that thing on Dr. Google, and Dr. Google said this is the way it's going to be. And I went here, and that's not going to work. That's okay. Those are just teachers that came into those moments. But allow that knowing to grow from within you and knowing who you really are.
Yes. And what do you really want? And knowing that that's your truth, that desire, that want, that's your compass. That's showing you what is possible. And it can only expand from there, which I think is such an exciting thing, that we have that idea of this is what I want. And then we get there and see how much more and bigger it can get. And it's just such a beautiful journey that starts to unfold as we step into that path. And Yes,
Yeah.
I love this conversation so much, and I appreciate you pulling in all the different
Thank you.
aspects from the spiritual to the science and just connecting all of those dots, because it's so important for people to see that there is truth to this. I think people telling their stories is one thing because it's so important for us to hear the possibility, but then to link it into these really quantifiable, real things, it becomes undeniable at that point. So then at that point, it's like, well, then now you're just choosing to not believe it because there's no way to deny this anymore. We know these things are true.
Right.
And so now it's your choice to step into this and to believe it's possible for you or not. And I feel like you've already answered this so many times, but I like to end my podcasts by asking folks, who is your illness inviting you to become? Or have you become as a result of your illness? And, I think of it as a constant becoming, but I would love to know your answer to that question.
I think you said it perfectly. It will be a constant becoming. For me, it's trust. It's surrender and trust, knowing that this next step will lead me to what I ultimately desire, and letting go. One of the hardest parts, and I told you, one of my edges is to be able to let go and just trust that, okay, if it's meant to be, great. If it's not, great. It's leading me down a different path. So that's where the biggest step in this is, and I will be becoming this the rest of my life.
Yeah, it's a constant choice. And it's so beautiful to see in such a short time where it's taken you and who you've become. I feel like I say this to every guest. I want to have you back on because I want to see how this journey continues to unfold. But I'm grateful for our connection now, and I get to witness that journey and see what these constant choices lead you toward. And Matt, I thank you so much for coming on here today and sharing your wisdom, your medicine, your journey. I feel just being in your presence, I can feel that resonance of love and groundedness. And I'm sure my listeners can sense that too. There's such a peace being in your presence. So thank you for that work and the ripple effects that are coming out from that and the way that you're changing people and healing people. I'm so grateful for you, and I'm so glad to know you and appreciative of your time today.
Dr. Aaron, I am so happy and floored to be here and spend this time with you as well. So thank you very, very much.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Sacred Illness Podcast. If you find this information shared here inspirational and educational, please share it with those you think would benefit from this work. To take this work deeper yourself, check out our website, www.aurorasomatic.com, where you can explore our coaching, community, and course options. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel where new content is coming out all the time, intended to inspire, awaken, and help you deepen your relationship with yourself, your life, and your world. We'll see you next time. Hi, Sacred Illness listeners, Dr. Aaron here. If you are resonating with the stories and the things that you're hearing inside this podcast, and you're curious how to begin this work yourself, how to start connecting with your illness in this different way, to start seeing it through a different lens, to start being in relationship with it versus seeing it as an adversary or something that you have to fight against, I would love to invite you to join us inside the Sacred Illness community. This is an online space I've created exactly for that. It takes you step by step through a process to decipher the message of your body, to understand what your symptoms are trying to communicate with you, the subconscious patterns and the belief systems that have been imprinted and programmed into your nervous system that are now creating the conditions in your body that are not conducive for healing, and in fact are likely creating the illness and the symptoms that you are experiencing now. Within this community, you will learn all the things you need to do to begin to rewrite those stories, to rewrite those nervous system patterns, to understand on a deeper level what it is that's driving your body to create illness and to move in this direction of disease, and how to reverse this process and begin to work with yourself in this more holistic, loving way versus fighting against a body that you're perceiving perhaps to be failing, when really illness is this beautifully wise communication trying to get you to tune in and listen in this new way. Everything contained within the community is self-paced, it is affordable, it is easily accessible from anywhere. It can be on your laptop or on your phone, and it allows you to add this element that's foundational to your health and healing process in addition to anything else that you're doing. This work is complementary to whether you're taking pharmaceuticals or just pursuing more holistic type treatments, whatever you are doing, this nervous system, mind-body piece is foundational and needs to be part of your treatment plan. So if it's not, the Sacred Illness community is a really easy and really important way to get this part of the work into your routine. If you want to learn more, you can click the link down below in the show notes. That will lead you to a full description of everything that's included in the community. Or if you're ready to just sign up today, you can go to mysacredillness.com, follow the prompts, and you'll find your way into our space. It is my mission and my goal for everyone who's listening to this podcast to feel a sense of hope that you're not broken, your body is not failing. It is a beautiful, intelligent communication that is taking place, and the Sacred Illness community is the space and the place where you can begin to decipher that message and find your way back to the health and the healing that you deserve and desire. So I hope to see you in there, and for now, let's get back to the podcast.